Hey everyone, I'm Siavash. I work at Shopify as an engineer on the mobile team. And I'm here to talk about an open source framework that we've recently released called FlashList. So it's no secret that at Shopify, we love React Native. And I think we've said on our blog posts, back in 2018, we made a big corporate decision, like a company decision, to go all in on React Native. And today, our major applications that serve all our customers and merchants are on React Native. So it's been a big journey, but a really rewarding journey with React Native. And as you can imagine, being a commerce company, we've just got lots of lists, like tons of lists. I can't tell you how many. And when you start React Native as a beginner, probably in the first hour, you're going to be wanting to use a list. So where did we start? So we started with FlatList. As most of you will know, FlatList is the out-the-box list component that comes with React Native. And there's a lot of good things going for FlatList. It's got a really good API. As your application grows, you'll find that FlatList has already got an answer to what you need. So it's really great in that regard. It's already got a lot of optimization out the box. So it's far better than a primitive map. You get a lot of optimization. And it's going to get you pretty far. So I think many of you will have probably experienced FlatList. But of course, we at Shopify, we've been needing the scale we need. We did hit some shortcomings. So as your lists grow larger or more complex, you'll start to notice the performance and the experience start to degrade. And then you'll start having to think about optimization. And this is this is very obvious on a really low-end Android device. And at Shopify, we don't want the device to hold you back from using Shopify. And it turns out that FlatList is actually quite CPU intensive. So whilst this is visually quite apparent on an Android device, even on an iOS device, whilst it might be smooth, your phone might actually start overheating, you might lose battery life, so that's also not ideal. So here's a quick sort of recording of one of our actual applications using FlatList. And as you start to scroll fast, you can see, big blank areas. Now, this is recorded on a really low-end device. It costs about £100 or $100 these days. And yeah, I'm still amazed you can get an Android phone for $100 that does all that has a camera and all that. And of course, we want everyone to be able to enjoy Shopify. Now, before I move on to some how we explored, I just want to call out that FlatList does have a lot of optimization properties that you can go ahead and tune, and you might get the performance you want. So before diving into solutions, there is a pathway with FlatList as well. So the first thing we did was we looked to the community, and there's already a lot of great libraries that do all sorts of things on React Native. But was there a solution for lists? And it turns out there was. There's a library called Recycle a List View, and we tried it, and it turned out to be super fast, really fast. One caveat would be it took a lot of configuration, and the way it got fast was it took a different approach to optimization than FlatList. So FlatList took virtualization as an optimization. Recycle List went further and did recycling, and I'll explain a bit about that in a later slide. And it scaled really well with the large and complex lists that we were having. It's also highly customizable. It's actually got a much bigger superset than FlatList if you're looking for different features. And it's already used in production. It's pretty mature, well adopted. But the kind of shortcomings that we faced at Shopify was the API was quite complicated for us, and the best way to explain it is the API was kind of very object orientated in the sense that you had to wire up like a provider with sources, and it wasn't quite React like where we're used to like just declaring JSX and getting what we want. We also had some requirements for dynamic height list items, and whilst there was a solution in FlatList, it took a lot of like hand tuning and manual work. And one issue that we did face specifically on Android devices was actually the first few frames was quite jittery, but after that it was really smooth. But as Shopify, we still wanted to solve the first few frames. You can imagine that's where the customer is perceiving the performance. So we started on an exploration, and we came up with FlashList. It was an internal project. And before I talk a bit more about FlashList, I just want to call out Talha. So Talha was the author of FlatList, and we were very fortunate at Shopify for him to actually join the team, and he brought over tons of experience with FlatList, and he also had so many great ideas for how we could take it forward. So Talha joined the team. He led a lot of the FlashList work. So what were the goals? So the goals was we wanted 60.
Just swap it. It's dying out.
So we want. Oh, whoops. Does that work? Hello.
I think it works. Yeah.
Hello.
Yeah.
I don't think so. I think
1-1. Does it work? No.
It does work. Oh, okay, my ears.
Just a bit more quiet. No, just dying out. Go ahead.
Okay. So our goals were we wanted 60 FPS on any device. And of course, a lot of the modern devices are 120 FPS. So, we wanted that as well. Now, we've got so many teams at Shopify that have to implement lots of different lists. So it had to be developer friendly. It couldn't take like a week to like build a list every time. And we wanted to solve that the dynamic height issue that we kept seeing with FlatList view. And instrumentation and performance and measuring is very important to Shopify. So we had to have a great story for instrumentation. So I'm just going to start with the developer-friendly goal. So the FlashList API, it turns out we were able to pretty much match the FlatList API. So, we did iterate on how we could improve the FlatList API, whether it needed a new one. But it turns out that FlatList had a great API that could serve such a wide spectrum of needs. And we were able to just switch out the implementation details and have you just rename FlatList to FlashList and almost get like instant performance. There are some tweaks that you can do that I'll explain later. And the performance we got on FlashList, this is a demo on the same like $100 device, and it's running on a non-trivial list, dynamic heights. It's got a lot of functionality, and we were getting 60 FPS. This is with recording on. It was in really fast performance. So, how did we make it fast? And I just want to deep dive into that right now. So I'll start off a bit with how FlatList does their optimization. So you can think a bit of like FlatList as like a sliding window, and almost like lazy loading. And what happens is, as you scroll, FlatList will schedule batches to render items below the fold. And it's defaulted to 10 viewports of preloaded data. And the main optimization here is memory. So as items leave the window, FlatList will empty the items, like releasing memory. So FlatList is mainly a memory optimization, or that's how we saw it. Now, the way that FlashList works is we've introduced the concept of a recycler pool. And the way this works is when items leave the viewport, we don't destroy those cells. We put those cells into a recycler pool, and then as you scroll up, we take the cell from the recycler pool and just re-render your new content. So we're not creating and destroying objects over a lot of the time. We're also not like saturating the bridge. So we got a lot of performance just by adopting recycling. And it turns out actually that we didn't need to preload so much under the fold. So here, we only preload half a viewport of items, and we were still able to get that silky smooth scroll. Whereas FlatList defaults to 10 viewports, which you can, is thousands of pixels of items that are underneath that you don't see. So here's a demo of FlatList and how it's like creating cells. So like I said before, it's lazy loaded. So if you're on like item 30, you're still creating cell 30. So it's still creating a lot of objects, and that contributes a bit to the CPU issues that we saw. Whereas if we look at FlashList, we've got a recycler pool here. And as we scroll, we're reusing cells that were previously rendered above. So it's much more efficient. It's far less chatty over the bridge. It's using far less objects. It just uses less resources. And another way I can describe it, it's a bit like looking side on to a Ferris wheel. So you might have 1,000 passengers of the Ferris wheel that's coming and going, but the carriages remain. And FlashList is just spinning this wheel really, really fast. And that's how we get our optimization. So I just wanted to touch a bit about the API. So previously I said you could just rename FlashList and you'll get a really fast list. That is true, but we do encourage one property that you provide that will make FlashList a lot more optimal. And this is the estimated item size, which is essentially an estimate from yourselves on the height of an item. It doesn't need to be pixel perfect. We've got a lot of tolerances, but the main optimization it gives is it gives us a big clue on how many items to render. So our default is 50 pixels, as you can see on the left, but you might have a list that's like 500 pixels, and we're rendering like 7 items too much from the act of scrolling. So you can get a lot of performance from just giving us this property. And we do offer a console warning in dev mode, and we also calculate the average height. So you can kind of just copy and paste this number and forget about it in most cases. So the next issue really is I touched a bit on it about the dynamic cell heights. It's fixing that first render. This is a very slowed down video of recycler list view, and you might be able to see that there's this slight jitter where there's this like a mismatch between the actual true layout and then the estimated layout. So here's a bit of a diagram on that. So the left side is like what we think you might want to render. The layout in the middle is what is going to be rendered. But what we've done with FlashList is we've added a new native module which calculates it kind of corrects the gaps and overlaps before even the first frame. So you don't actually see any like jittering on the first like few frames of FlashList. So here's a quick video of that. So you can see it just already synchronously corrects everything for you. So I'm just going to show you some metrics. Again, this is on the same $100 device. And I'll first show you FlatList. So this is measuring FPS. So as you can see, the UI FPS is dropping quite a bit, but what's more of a concern is the JS FPS here. So like in the main scroll action is actually going below 5 FPS. And if we have a look at the, if we have a look at this metric here, which is the thread lock, this is the time that the JS thread is completely locked out. So if you've got any interactions that need to happen as you scroll, or you need to like initiate HTTP requests, you can't, your JS thread is too busy doing something else to be able to do it. So it was a big concern for us. So here's the same benchmark with FlashList. And as you can see, the UI thread is pretty much between 60 and 65, really fast. And the UI thread is so much better. And again, this is on a really low-end device. It's got screen recording, and we're like scrolling like you wouldn't do that in a normal sort of world. And the JS thread lock, we will manage to keep it at 0. So the FlashList is doing so little on the JS thread that you can actually respond to interactions. You can do more animation. You can do more HTTP if you wish in the JS thread. So just a bit more about instrumentation. I mentioned earlier that this is like such a big theme from Shopify. So we actually ship with some hooks that can help you out with your instrumentation. So one hook is called use benchmark. We've got a benchmark for both FlatList and FlashList. So even if you choose not to use FlashList, please feel free to use it to see how your app is performing. We also come with a second hook, which is measuring probably the most perceived problem of the low FPS, which is the blank areas that are left behind. And we've made it so that you can actually use it in production. So you might want to like fire it off to your observation or analytics and see like what your real users are experiencing. And also, I just want to call out, we've got a couple of other libraries. We've got quite a big suite of performance features in React Native Performance. And more specifically, we've got a specific profiler for lists that help you see all the problems with your lists. So again, you don't need to use this on FlashList. You can use it on FlatList if you wish. So is FlashList production ready? So at Shopify, we've been using FlashList for several months now. It's shipped 100% pretty much on all of our applications. And we've ironed out as many issues as we've seen, and I actually think the open source version, is operating really reliably for us. And we've obviously had great feedback from product teams, customers, merchants on this. And this is an example side by side of our actually production shop app. The right-hand side is FlashList, and then the left-hand side is FlatList. And as you can see, we get into this problem of blank lists. It's unusable in this state in our opinion. So what's next? So yeah. The famous 4 words that you've seen like quite a few times, but yeah, we're in the process of moving to Fabric, supporting Fabric, and shout out to Meta for just pushing React Native constantly, even though we think it's hit a really good place. They've got a surprise for us, and this is really looking promising, and we hope that FlashList can achieve far better, like even more performance than I've shown today. And then this week we actually launched quite an asked for feature both internally and externally, which is masonry layout. And now you can get a masonry layout where you've got dynamic heights in any column, and it's just going to be silky smooth. We're really happy with how this has turned out. Please check it out, see if it works for your projects. So yeah, we're open source. We've been open source for 3 months now. So please check out FlashList. If you have any issues, any suggestions, feel free to post an issue. Of course, leave a like. That will go down well with us. We've also got a microsite, and here we go into a lot more depth on how to get the best out of FlashList. So how to install it, how to use it. And we've got a lot of documentation on performance. This is the reason why FlashList existed. And a lot of this can be applied to other lists as well. So please have a read. So just to go back to this slide, Shopify, we're so proud of being part of the React Native community. And if you both like React Native and Shopify, I'll be around. It's a bit of a plug. But I also have a colleague here from Talent. If you're interested in Shopify, please have a chat with us. We love talking tech. And thank you for having me.